Hello everyone. A few weeks ago, someone gave me the suggestion to rate every unique set in Darkrise. I thought this was a good idea, so in this video, that's what we're going to do. There are currently 7 unique sets in Darkrise. The epic ones are the Bloodlust set and the Empowered set. The legendary ones are the Cold Orchard set, Forest set, Gladiator set, Samurai set, and Defender set. When rating each set, I will be looking at the set bonuses, the amount of items needed, and the individual stats on the items and how useful they are in game. I have decided to split this into 2 parts, so I will do the epics and 1 legendary today, and I will do the remaining 4 legendaries in the next video. We'll start with the epic items, so the first set we'll be looking at is the Bloodlust set. The set bonuses are Armor Pen, Haste, Damage, and Strength. Armor Pen is very important because it allows you to ignore enemy defense so you can do more damage. Haste is less important, but it's still useful to have a decent amount, especially if you're an archer. Damage is obviously good, and Strength is brilliant because it increases Armor Pen, block, and critical severity, but it also increases damage if you're a warrior. So overall, I really like the set bonuses that Bloodlust have. Now you do need 6 items to get the last set bonus of Strength, which is obviously a bit annoying because maybe you don't want to use all 6 items. However, one thing I will say is that because it's an epic set and not a legendary one, it should be easier to get all 6 items compared to a legendary set. Now in terms of the individual items, all of them have the same additional and main stats. The main stats are dexterity, strength, and defense, and the additional ones are armor pen, haste, and damage. And again, these are really good for endgame because you're going to need dexterity for critical rate and block rate. Obviously we've talked about strength, and defense is great for bridge for reducing your damage, and of course armor pen is nice. Damage is great for increasing the amount of damage you do to an enemy. Haste is less important, like I said, but it can also be useful. So I do believe that this is actually a really good set of stats, and even if you're in early game, these are going to be useful for you in the long term. Now in terms of rating Bloodlust, I think it's very good. Most of the stats and bonuses are useful throughout the game from start to finish. Because it's an epic, it should be easier to get as well compared to legendary, which is useful for lower level players who still want items with high stats. My only problem is that because this set doesn't include a weapon, and weapons usually have attacking stats, if you use the entire set, your build could end up lacking health and defense, so you'll need to use the skill tree or gems to improve this. Also, the stats aren't as high as a legendary item because it's obviously a lower rarity, but I still think that this set deserves a 7 out of 10 at least, and in the future I will try an all epic build to see how this might work. Next, we're going to be looking at the Empowered set. The set bonuses are Energy Shield, Skill Recovery, Damage, and Intelligence. Energy Shield is quite nice to have in early game, and I used it a lot, but when you reach Bridge of Stagnation, you don't need it. Skill Recovery isn't important either, though a warrior does need a little bit if they want to keep Berserker mode on all the time. Damage is good, and Intelligence is good for builds that need mana. So overall, it's not bad, but it's not the best either. When you look at the individual items, the ones that aren't weapons have intelligence and defense as main stats, and energy shield, skill recovery, and damage as additional. The weapons have intelligence, dexterity, and damage as main, with skill recovery and haste as additional. The item that goes where the orb, shield, or quiver goes has intelligence, dexterity, and crit rate as main stats, and energy shield and skill recovery as additional. Now some of these items can be good. For example, the shield would be a good option for a warrior who wants skill recovery and mana. However, as a set, it isn't going to work in the long term, especially if you're not a mage. I think it gets a 4 out of 10 because there's not enough strength, which makes it useless in endgame, and there's barely any health and defense, which makes it not great for early game players too. It's time to start with the unique legendaries, so we'll be looking at the Samurai set. The set bonuses are Strength and Dexterity, which are both very important for endgame. Now there's only 2 items in this set, the helmet and the samurai plate, but you need both to get the bonuses. Now both have the same main and additional stats. The main is strength, dexterity, and defense, and the additional is critical rate, block rate, and damage. This is my favourite set because it makes getting block rate to 100% much easier. When I'm not using this set, I have to use 4 more dexterity gems, or I have to use a lot of dexterity and block rate from the passive skill tree. Every stat on the item is important, so there are no wasted stats, and because there's only 2 items, it means that you can also use other sets and items if you really want to. Therefore, I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10. So that's it for part 1. Obviously in the second part I'll be doing the remaining 4 unique sets. Thank you for watching. I hope you found this useful, and I'll see you in the next video.